Good afternoon, everyone. I call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Ways and Means Committee to order. I'm Council Member Abdi Warsame, and I'm the chair of the committee. And with me today are Council Members Johnson, Fletcher, Palmisano, and Jenkins. And let the record reflect that we have a quorum and are able to consider city business. First, let's dispense with the consent item, and we have a large consent item, and I will start reading them. The first item is a legal settlement, Stephen Meldahl versus the City of Minneapolis. The second item is a legal settlement claim of Richard H. Robinson. Third item is a legal settlement, Ryan Carlson versus City of Minneapolis. Fourth item is a legal settlement claim of John P. Fairbanks. Fifth item is a legal settlement claim of Samuel Joseph Simmons. The sixth item is a contract with LifeTech Services for emergency medical services at the Minneapolis Convention Center. The seventh item is a contract amendment with LifeTech emergency medical services at the Minneapolis Convention Center. The eighth item is a contract amendment with the Center for Energy and Environment for building benchmarking and disclosure services. The ninth item is an acquisition of 2629 University Avenue Northeast for the East Side Storage and Maintenance Facility project. The 10th item is a license agreement with Sioux Line Railroad Company for monitoring well at 2651 University Avenue Northeast. The 11th item is a lease at Minneapolis impound lot for State Highway Patrol vehicle storage. 12th item is a contract amendment with the Minneapolis Downtown Council for downtown activation services. The 13th item is a contract amendment with Goldberg Bonding for leased space in the Jerry Half Memorial Parking Ramp. The 14th item is a contract amendment with the Backbone Enterprises, Inc. for information IT audit services. The 15th item is a contract with Regents of the University of California for combined DNA index systems use. The 16th item is a Capital Long Range Improvement Committee CLIC appointments. And I have an item to add to that one. The appointments, one is approving the following council appointments for remainder of the current Capital Long Range Improvement Committee CLIC. Terms beginning April 17, 2018 and ending December 31st, 2018. Amity Foster, seat Ward 5, seat 5, Ward 3, and James Bone, seat 15, Ward 8. 2, confirming the following mayoral appointments for the remainder of the current Capital Long Range Improvement Committee CLIC term beginning April 17, 2018 and ending December 31st, 2018. Layli Fatahi, seat 32, Ward 11. Katie Hatt, seat 28, Ward 8. And Pui Najmi, seat 29, Ward 9. And I would also like to add to confirming the mayoral appointment of Jocelyn Beard, seat 33, Ward 4, for a 2-year term beginning January 1st, 2017 and ending December 31st, 2018 to fill the unexpired term of Emily Strumpf. So that takes care of item number 16. Item number 17 is the first quarter 2018 donation report. Item number 18 is a contract with Regents of the University of Minnesota for traffic management services at TCF Bank Stadium. Item number 19 is a gift acceptance from Illinois Emergency Services Management Association for travel-related expenses to the IESMA Training Summit. Item number 20 is a gift acceptance from the Center for Policing Equity for travel-related costs to the 2018 Science of Justice Conference. Item number 21 is a gift acceptance from the Auschwitz Institute for Peace and Reconciliation for Minneapolis Police Department travel-related costs to the National Seminar for Law Enforcement on Civil and Human Rights. Item number 22 is a Minnesota GI Bill on the Job Training Apprenticeship Program, employer payments. Item number 23 is a quote for total containment vessel. Item number 24 is a contract with the Downtown Improvement District for the 2018 Minneapolis Downtown Improvement District Summer Police and Police Reserve Program. Item number 25 is a contract with SMG for law enforcement services in the neighborhoods adjacent to the U.S. Stadium at large-scale events. Item number 26 is a contract with the SMG for Minneapolis Police SWAT officers to provide extra security during large-scale events at the U.S. Bank Stadium. Item number 27 is a contract with SMG for bomb detection and 9/11 dispatch services at the U.S. Bank Stadium. Item number 28 is a grant from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety for hazardous materials, emergency preparedness, computer equipment, and simulation software. Item number 29 is a grant from the Minneapolis Foundation in support of the Emergency Medical Services Pathway Academy. Item number 30 is a 2018 National Forensics Sciences Improvement Grant from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety for the Minneapolis Police Department Crime Lab. Item number 31 is a contract with Twins Ballpark LLC for bomb detection at Target Field. Item number 32 is a master contract amendment with Tubman, Pillsbury United Communities, North Point Health and Wellness Center, Inc., and the Family Partnership for Continued Health and Human Services Programs. Item number 33 is a grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for lead remediation and healthy home services. Item number 34 is an application for environmental grant funding in the spring 2018 Brownfield Ground Round. Item number 35 is a business continuity and disaster recovery IT audit. Item number 36 is a bid for the Old Bassett Creek sediment removal project. Item number 37 is a bid for emergency and non-emergency board-up services for securing vacant and open buildings. Item number 38 is a bid for gray black-colored Class A aggregate. Item number 39 is a bid for Minneapolis Parking Surveillance Project. Item number 40 is a bid for Bassett Creek Main Stem Stabilization Project. Item number 40 is 40th Street West Resurfacing Project Approval and Assessment. Item number 42 is Emerson Avenue North Street Resurfacing Project Approval and Assessment. Item number 43 is the 24th Street East and 24th Street West Street Resurfacing Project and Approval Assessment. Item number 44 is the Lindale and Whittier South Residential Area Street Resurfacing Project Approval and Assessment. Item number 45 is a bid for Hennepin Avenue South Street Reconstruction Project. Item number 46 is a bid for Emerson and Fremont Bicycle and Pedestrian Improvement Project. Item number 47 is an agreement with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for landscaping improvements at the Hennepin Lindale split to Dunwoody Boulevard. And those are our consent items, and I make a motion to move the consent items. Any discussions, my colleagues? Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to add a motion to item number 35, and it's before you. It's a staff direction by myself and you to ask IT to work to issue an RFP to remediate those recent internal audit findings. I've had a significant amount of discussion with the director of IT and with our finance director, Micah Intermill, on this topic. And while we'll have to wait till the RFP comes back and what those requirements are to see exactly how we fund it. We do believe that this needs to happen this year. We believe that a third party to come in and do a business impact analysis would take on the average of 4 to 6 months. And we'd like to get moving on that right away. So I ask that you consider this to be added to item number 35 as an additional motion.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Palmisano has made a motion to amend item number 35. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Okay, on that motion to amend item number 35, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. That item has passed, and now let's discuss the motion to approve our full consent item, including the amended item number 35. Any discussions? Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all of the members of the community who've stepped up to serve on the click. We're voting to approve several of them, and I know they've already met. They had a long meeting on Saturday. Many of them were live tweeting it if you want to follow hashtag CLIC, and did some very good work. And it's exciting to have the community engaged in deciding where we make our investments. So thank you for your service. And
All right. Thank you very much, Councilmember Fletcher. Any other discussions? Any other comments? Okay. Seeing no further comments. All those in approval say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We have passed our consent item. Thank you very much to everyone. And now we have our discussion item. And we have a full discussion item. We have 5 items today. Items number 48, 49, and 50 will go first. We have a joint presentation by Mr. Milberg and Mr. Hanlon, I believe. So, gentlemen, come up. Thank you. Item number 48 is a community solar gardens increasing subscription agreement with IPS Solar, Rena Solar, and US Solar. Item number 49 is a transfer of 2018 funds from the City Coordinator's Office to the Health Department for the Green Cost Share Program. And item number 50 is a transfer of 2018 funds from the Community Planning and Economic Development to the Health Department for the Green Initiatives Cost Sharing Program. So go ahead, Mr. Milberg.
Committee Chair Warsami, committee members, I'm Brian Milberg. I'm the energy manager for the city. I'm here today to show you our plan for the city operations to have all of the electricity that we use by the year 2022 be generated from 100% renewable sources. What you see in this chart, each horizontal line is a year, and we start in 2018. And basically the plan is we have already purchased a contract for Renewable Connect Energy, which comes from wind and solar sources from Excel, and it's directly assigned to our accounts. And that will be fulfilled in 2018 at the contract amount of 17.8 million kilowatt hours. The areas that are hatched are areas that I'll be coming to council throughout this year to ask for further approval. The orange area is we are going to purchase another 40 million kilowatt hours in the Renewable Connect program. The blue area of the chart in each line is the amount of solar that we have on our existing seated buildings. And the green is the amount of the electricity that we get from Excel over the grid. But as of 2016, 25% of that electricity was generated from wind, solar, biomass, or hydro. And so that's also renewable. And so in 2017, you add those up, and it came out to 32%. With the purchase of this new contract with Renewable Connect, we'll be up to 65% this year, and you can see it increases each year. The length of the total bar that you see in that yellow area is decreasing each year as we go about our yearly conservation measures, the largest of which will be the replacement of street lights with LED lights throughout the city. Today I'm here to speak on item number 48, which is increasing the amount of solar community gardens that we are participating in. That's the purple line. Back in the fall of 2016, the council authorized 12 million kilowatt hours of solar garden subscriptions. We were only able to obtain 7 at the time. We went out with another RFP recently, and we were able to not only meet the remainder of that 12 million, but each of the 3 proposals is economically viable and would allow us to take up to 20 million kilowatt hours in solar gardens. And so that's what I'm proposing in this action today. And you can see over time the length of that purple bar increases. And as you get to year 2021, if we can reduce our electricity consumption as planned, we'll hit the 100% renewable at the end of that year. In 2022, we'll actually have title and be participating in renewable energy that actually exceeds our consumption. And then in 2023, we'll be cutting back on this second Renewable Connect contract. We're only going for a 5-year contract, and that's because we feel there will be other opportunities in the 2022-2023 timeframe that will allow us to participate in renewable energy options at a much cheaper price than we're currently paying. The plan as outlined right now does have an extra cost. The first year in 2018, it'll be about $300,000 more than we currently pay on our $12 million worth of electricity. In 2019, it'll be about $350,000 extra. But then starting in 2020, as we get more and more community solar garden subscriptions where we actually save money, that will start to offset the extra costs for the Renewable Connect. And by 2021, we'll actually be saving more money than we're spending on the Renewable Connect. So over time, it'll be cost neutral, and at about year 5 or 6, we'll actually be saving a significant amount of money for the city. So today, I'm here again to ask for authorization to participate in these 3 contracts to get us to the 20 million, and also to officially raise our level of commitment to 20 million kilowatt hours. I did want to say one last thing. Due to a decision that was made quite some time ago, we decided that to consider what was in our municipal operations would be just the buildings and processes that we have actual day-to-day control over. And so we segregated out the Target Center and all of the parking ramps, since those are run by outside management companies. And so you see that this first chart shows us getting to that 100% by the end of 2021. If the council decides that they wish to include those 2 items that I mentioned were not in the first chart, the parking ramps and the Target Center, that increases our overall electrical consumption by 31 million kilowatt hours a year. This chart just shows the same amount of solar garden subscriptions, and as you can see, we would not meet our goal by 2023, and so further action would need to be taken. At this time, I'm proposing that we shoot for the older definition of what our municipal operations are, and then as we reach that 100%, we consider further options in years ahead to accommodate this extra energy as well.
Milberg, any questions from my colleagues? Comments? Councilmember Fletcher?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Milberg. I appreciate this. And I appreciate the clarity about the difference between the municipal properties that we have control over their energy consumption and the ones that we don't. I'm supportive in terms of our short-term 2022 goal that we've set in continuing to measure as we have been, and then also I would maybe add a staff direction to, as we're negotiating new contracts, as we're renewing contracts with the operators of the ramps and the Target Center, that we include renewable goals in those contract negotiations as one of the criteria that we're looking for in those operators. Would that be a better approach than trying to calculate totals for venues that we don't have control of?
Council Chair Warsami and council members, Fletcher and the rest of the committee, actually, it doesn't really matter which way we go. The end result would be about the same in terms of cost, because any extra cost would be passed on to us in that negotiation. The one advantage of setting aside the ramps and Target Center for now and trying to include them later, for example, in 2023, is when we do go out to replace this 40 million kilowatt hour Renewable Connect contract, we would probably go out for a much larger contract with possibly a new wind farm or a new solar farm to add more resources to the system. And at that time, we could easily pick up the Target Center and the ramps. Either way, I'm fine with that staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. President Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Versami and Mr. Milberg. I apologize if I missed it, but I know you indicated that there are 3 RFP or 3 respondents. Can you identify who those respondents are, and when is that process going to be selected?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the last part of the question.
When would you select those respondents? Or
so we at the end of 2017, we put out an RFP requesting the 4.5 million kilowatt hours that were not filled out of our original 12 million. We received 3 respondents. We went through the entire financial analysis. The first firm is Innovative Power Systems, a local owned company.
Okay.
The second is Rene Sola, which is a California company but does have a local office. And the third is United States Solar, or US Solar, which also has a local office. It is a national firm. It turned out that financially, all 3 of those proposers met our financial goals of saving money over time. And each of them proposed enough power that we could get to the 20 million kilowatt hours. And so I felt it to fit with this plan of trying to cover our non-renewable electricity from the grid with the solar garden subscriptions, we would increase the amount to 20 million. We'll save anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 a year from those 3 gardens. In addition to the 200,000 to 400,000 we'll be saving from the initial gardens that we've already signed up with.
Will they be using local residents to install?
I know that Innovative Power Systems will be. I'm assuming that US Solar and Rene Sola will hire a local electrical contractor, but we don't have control over those contracts since we don't have any actual payments up front. We're not paying for the construction. So that was not a requirement of the bid. They are certainly required to meet prevailing wage and those types of items, but there are no minority set-asides and as such.
Okay, thank you.
Very much. Any other questions? Okay, I think continue the presentation.
Well, the next half is, as you know, this resolution is coming to the council this cycle for the community as well as our own internal operations, and Patrick Hanlon is going to discuss how solar is going to help us get to that goal as well.
Thank you, Brian. Chair Warsame, council members, my name is Patrick Hanlon. I'm the Director of Environmental Programs for the Health Department. So this first slide here is, Brian was talking about how we're walking the talk when it comes to our own energy here at the city. This year we started a Green Business Solar cost share program. It's an incentive program to help drive installation of solar on rooftops around the city, real installations that are going on around the city. In the number of programs that I've rolled out here at the city, I don't think I've had the kind of response that we had for this program. Usually it involves going out and doing outreach with business organizations, with community organizations, and as soon as we came out with this program, we received my phone was ringing off the hook and responding to people in developers and businesses in people wanting to put solar on their rooftops. So this graph right here represents some of that. If you look in 2016, that's the smaller portion. That's around 700,000 kilowatt hours of production that was installed that year. In 2018, we have received over 7 million kilowatt hours of proposals for projects to go in. That represents about $15 million or over $15 million in solar investment around the city. With the proposals that are, or the items that are up for discussion today, the transfer of funds from the city coordinator's office that was part of the Clean Energy Partnership, which Councilman Fletcher is part of, transferring those funds over for doing some of this work. And then that's been a little over a year in conversations with the coordinator's office and with the environmental or energy visioning advisory committee and the Clean Energy Partnership. We've been working in partnership with CPED. That's another one of the items that are up for discussion today. And working with Becky Shaw at CPED in utilizing some funds that have been underused in their department in ways that we can make these projects happen. And so this is a representation of some of that work and the coordination with staff and different departments that have gone on behind some of these numbers. So it's 34 different businesses. And I have a full list here of all the businesses if you like to see them. But these are some examples: Urban Ventures, St. Peter's Lutheran Church, Phillips Garden, North Loop Campus is a charter school. I'm going to butcher this name, Tawfiq Islamic Center, Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the Fulton Brewery, Electric Machinery Company, Gandhi Mahal Restaurant, and Mother Earth. It's a cross section of small businesses, industry, community organizations, schools that are putting these projects on. And I just wanted to add this slide is that the production as we go forward, and we have people that are on the waiting list already for next year that want to get more projects up around the city, and we've had to tell them that we're out of funding for this year. But it's additive, and so each year we'll be adding more and more solar to the rooftops around the city, and so this is just a basic projection of what that looks like is over time. If we can get these same kinds of results every year, these are the kinds of results, and you're looking at over 50 million kilowatt hours in production by 2025. Between the municipal operations, obviously the contracts that Brian was talking about, that's a lot of aggressive work that we're doing here at the city. This is the first year of the solar incentives, and between the two different approaches right now, we're saving enough carbon, reducing enough carbon, because sometimes these carbon numbers, it's hard to equate to what does that really mean in terms of everyday things. So it's equivalent to taking about 6,000 cars off the road in terms of CO2 emissions, and over 3 million gallons of gasoline. And so this is an example of how these funds and the work that we're doing in walking the talk, and then also driving community solar out in our neighborhoods. There's also involved in that $614,000 from the coordinator's office, from the with the Clean Energy Partnership work. There is also work going into energy efficiency in multifamily housing, and then also energy efficiency in healthy homes work. Working with 94% of the houses that we work with are below or 80% AMI in terms of affordability, and so working with some of the lowest income folks in the city to address energy efficiency in their homes. So I don't have any slides on that today, but I'm perfectly welcome any questions regarding any of that work as well. And then there's also a portion of those funds that are coming over for running a pilot. As you've probably all seen, there's a 4D incentive program that was put out through CPED, and it's utilizing some of these funds to be able to add additional incentives for people who agree to affordability and long-term affordability in multifamily here in Minneapolis. And so I was just going to have, as the discussion item, I was going to have Becky Shaw from CPED come up and just clarify the transfer of funds from CPED.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the committee. We are requesting a one-time transfer of funds from CPED to the Health Department for the Green Initiatives Cost Share Program. In 2009, the Department of Energy granted the City of Minneapolis $780,000 to be used towards small business loan programs and incentives for energy efficiency improvements. And since that time, we've spent $525,000 of those funds. $300,000 has come back to the city already, but it's been difficult to expend the funds further. We have other financing tools that are more attractive than this energy efficiency loan program. So at this time, we're requesting to transfer the $300,000 that is available right now to the cost share program. And the Department of Energy is also supportive of the transfer because it fulfills their original mission of the grant request to provide financial support and incentives to small business owners making energy improvements. And if you have any questions, I'm available.
Any questions? All right. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Milberg, Mr. Hanlon, and Ms. Shaw. Any discussion? Councilman Fletcher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say how excited I am that we're walking the walk. I think it's very important that we pass resolutions that identify a vision, and even more important that we actually act on that vision and start building out the capacity. So I'm very excited about the work that city staff are doing to actually move us forward towards having more solar capacity. This is saving money for the city. This is generating opportunity in our city, and getting a lot of carbon out of the air. So I think this is exciting on a lot of levels, and I'm very supportive. Should we move these separately?
No, you can do it. 48, 49.
Okay. So I'll make one motion for all three of these. Moving approval of item 48, authorizing an increase to the total amount of community solar garden subscriptions from 12 million to 20 million kilowatt hours annually, and authorizing the subscriptions proposed with an addition of staff direction that as we negotiate contracts with facilities for whom we do not control their energy consumption, that we build renewable energy consumption into future contracts. I'll move item 49, authorizing a one-time transfer of $614,000 from the city coordinator's 2018 budget to the health department, and move a resolution transferring funds to the health department. And I'll move item 50, authorizing the one-time transfer of $300,000 from CPED to the health department, passing a resolution approving the one-time transfer of funds.
All right. Thank you very much. Councilmember Fletcher has moved items 48, 49, and 50. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The items have been approved. Thank you very much. And now we have item number 51, 2018 Local Board of Appeal and Equalization. Passage of resolution amending resolution 2018R/091, extending the meeting dates throughout May to accommodate the high number of appeals filed for review this year. And we have our city assessor, Mr. Patrick Todd, to do this presentation for us. So welcome, Mr. Todd.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Patrick Todd from the Minneapolis Assessor's Office and committee members. Let me get here. Okay, again, I'm ready to start. So what I'm here today to do is to present a quick update on the current local Board of Appeal and Equalization. This is going to add a little bit of a context to a resolution that we're asking to have amended. It's the amending resolution 2018R-91, which what we're asking for is the current resolution says that when the local Board of Appeal and Equalization opens, it must close within 20 days. Based on the current volume of appeals that we have at this point in time, we're not able to meet that, that requirement of 20 days. So we've actually asked the Department of Revenue for an extension, and they've granted us the extension, and we're coming back to City Council to ask for an extension as well to May 31st. So the question was asked, why the extension? We've always, to be honest, we've always done it within 20 days. Well, things are changing, and things are changing rather rapidly. Why are we here? We're here because the real estate market's changing quite a bit. In fact, I'm going to say there's 5 basic reasons why why this trend is, why we're in this trend today, and why we think the trend is going to continue. One is just the real estate market in and of itself. Second would be the tax base composition. Third is education and access. Fourth is social media, and the last one is taxes. So these are the reasons why more and more people are appealing the values. If we just take a look at the last 4 years, you'll see that the Minneapolis market has been very robust. We have a lot of people moving in. We have a lot of people that want to stay. We have a very low number of properties for sale as far as inventory that's available. So based on supply and demand year over year, people are paying more because that's what it's going to take in order to move into Minneapolis. We don't have enough people moving out. So people are willing to pay more to move in. So when you see a year over year, an 8%, a 10%, a 10%, a 10%, it gets kind of shocking to property owners when they start seeing their values that are going up like that. I think for the most part, people enjoy the equity that they're building. And in fact, I think for the most part, there's very few neighborhoods that have not made it through the recession and values have come back fully. So, and in fact, when we're taking a look at from last year to this year, the overall aggregate change for our residential tax base was 10, but we saw some areas going from 12 to 15. So, and in some areas we only saw 5, but statistically speaking, Minneapolis has been growing at a rate of about 10% every year. When we start talking about the number of appeals, if you take a look at what is our tax base, it's 60% of our tax base is residential property. So when something happens, when values are going to go up, it doesn't take much to change our real estate market for people to really, for those numbers for maybe on appeals when we were talking 400 a year or 500 a year to get to 1,400 a year, which is what we're at right now. A lot of it is just because the numbers, the sheer numbers of residential properties in Minneapolis can change that number, the number of appeals rather dramatically. So we have 60% residential, we have 20% or just under 20% commercial and 17% apartment. And I can show you that when we get to the actual number of appeals by property type, that really is reflecting the makeup of Minneapolis. So we have 1,245, the blue area is residential appeals. So we have 1,245 residential appeals. We have 85 that are apartment appeals and 56 commercial appeals. So again, it's fairly representative of the makeup of Minneapolis, and that's why I used kind of the composition is pretty similar to what Minneapolis has. So when we started the local board of appeal and equalization, we sent out 130 valuation notices, and then we start receiving phone calls from property taxpayers. We received just short of 3,100 phone calls from taxpayers that are interested with questions about their property value. How do we arrive at our property value? How do you appeal? Out of those just under 3,100, we did send out 1,386 actual applications. And then we had 1,226 that are open and are requiring some board action at this point. And we're down to 127 that are late and either late or canceled and are going to the Hennepin County for their county board. So we've made a really good effort to make sure that everybody that applied or appealed either on time or late have some avenue of appeal. The people that filed on time are going to have an opportunity to meet before the local board and the county board. The ones that missed their deadline will go straight to the county board, but they still have their avenue of appeal. When we talk about why we're getting more of appeals, I think we're doing a great job on education and training. Anytime I'm out in the neighborhood, anytime my staff are out in the neighborhood, we're always talking about the appeals process. We're talking about how we value property, but we know we're never going to be 100% right on every property, but so we need to hear from them. And I think that message is starting to resonate. We always talk, whenever I talk to the media, I always tell them that the appeals process is there for us to fix properties that we're not getting right the first time. And so we also pushed the application out on the website so people could just download the application, fill it out, and email it back in. And this was very successful. You can just take a look at where we used to be just a paper application process to now online application. It just skyrocketed. And I can tell you from looking at when these emails were coming in, it'd be 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock. You know, it's far more convenient. People could be working during the days or evenings and not have had the opportunity to get an application. Now when they get home, they get the application, they can get it taken care of and get it to us. So I think we're getting more because we're more accessible, we're making the tools more available. And I think that's a good thing because that means that we're gonna get more of these values correct. This is a timeline that shows why we somewhat didn't think that we had actually thought this is going to be a fairly normalized assessment. For about the first week or so, week and a half, we were having 20s, 30s. This is very, very typical. But then literally 3 days before, we received about 60% of our appeals. And on the very last day, we received 444 appeals. Our fax machine, emails, phones were ringing off the hook on the very last day of Friday at 4:30. And then since then, we've also still continued to take board cases that were just going to be late. And then when the board convened on their first date, and I don't remember, it was the 17th of April, they did meet, they convened, and they closed the application deadline so that no more, there's no additional applicants that will accept late. Any questions so far?
Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Osami. And I'm just really quite amused that you're getting all of these applications at 1 and 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're keeping our property owners awake at night. It's quite stunning, and the increase in applications is really overwhelming. And you know, it is interesting how I was interested in your previous slide showing commercial properties versus residential properties. And I don't think you talked about the imbalance in the amount of property taxes we receive from commercial versus residential, but do we set those percentages here at the city, or is that a state mandated process?
Through the chair, Councilmember Jenkins, as far as the overall tax rate that we're talking about, that is set at the legislature. So legislature sets 1.5% for the first 150,000 on a commercial, and then it's 2% after that, or they set the homestead classification rates. And so we really don't have any input into the overall tax burden rate that the property owners are setting. So, yeah. Let me keep going here. So this is an interesting slide. So what this slide will tell you, the blue bars are the amount of value that's currently under appeal through the local boards by ward. And then the green bar, line bar, is actually the number of appeals. So if you look at Councilmember Fletcher is at ward number 3, he has not few, but he has not that many appeals, but a significant amount of value currently under appeal. Then we look at Councilmember Palmisano's ward of 13. She has a significant amount of appeals and a significant amount of value. So it's really quite interesting to see as we're tracking. And this is a heat map that shows where our appeals are coming from. And I wish I could blow this up larger, but it really does resonate a lot around Councilmember Palmisano's ward, but there is a lot of value, and we've seen a significant amount of increases in sales and resales of property in that ward. So it does pretty much match what we're finding in our office, as well as what we're finding with the Minnesota Association of Realtors when we compare our data with their data as well. This is the next item that we think is really driving appeals, and it's really the social media and the digital access. So we have organizations like Zillow and Trulia and Redfin that are out there saying, here's what your property is worth, because they're grabbing, Minneapolis data, Hennepin County data. They're a national organization that acquires this data, uses their own analysis, and then spits out values and uses that to drive buyers to their website, and as well as selling advertising for what other services. But so when we have many other organizations that are arriving at a residential value, it is informing the taxpayers, which is always a good thing. Whether there's a level of accuracy, we think that our analysis is much higher because we really get down to a lot of the elements of quality and condition, and we feel we have a better handle on where market areas are changing rather than maybe these larger institutions. But what it does is it gets the conversation going. And so when we look at those, we look at Facebook, we look at Nextdoor, which is I'm not sure how many people have access to Nextdoor, but people are very active, and they're talking to each other, not only across the street, but within the same community. And so the more informed the taxpayers are, the more likely that they're going to take action. And that's, again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that that's probably the new world for the assessor's office, that we have to be on top of our game. We have to really know everything going on, because we're going to be held accountable, and information is very easily accessible. And then last but not least, and this is kind of the most obvious, is taxes. People, as they see these values going up, I think they're always excited to see that their equity is going up, but the tax burden that goes along with it is very frightening for many, many people. And when we talk about values, you almost cannot have a conversation with a taxpayer without getting into the tax consequence. And for that reason, that's another reason why the phones are ringing off the hook. That's why people are appealing. And what we would always say is that, we really have blinders on. We really can't look at the tax burden. Your value is your value, what you can sell for it. Regardless of what the taxes are, we just have to make sure we have your value correct. But nonetheless, we know very much that there's many, I don't know what percentage. It'd be interesting to survey every one of the 3,200 that we talked with, but I'm sure it's kind of one of those obvious elements if you ask people why they would appeal their value. It's not because they want less equity in their house or they would want to sell it for less. It's because they want to really reduce the tax burden. So with that, that is why we have a couple of statistics that I didn't talk about. So this year, more so, I have 14 residential appraisers. They're each handling 89 appeals each. So that means right now I have 2 and almost 3 people doing nothing but phone calling to set up 1,385 inspections. So that's all they did last week, and we think that everyone's going to have gotten at least 1 phone call and 1 email by today. And then we start going through that list, and we'll start calling a second time and a second email. And after that, if we haven't reached them to schedule an appointment, they'll be considered late, and we'll send them to the Hennepin County local boards. We can't continue to try to schedule these things as we get closer and closer to our deadlines. But every property owner, knowing because they called us or they emailed us to ask for an opportunity to have a review, has been called, have called twice and emailed twice. We figured that's, if they call back and we're exchanging, then that's a different story. But these would be 2 calls with no callback, 2 emails with no emails. We're done. We have to move on because of the volume that we have. So for a commercial, it's 6 commercial properties, 6 files per person. It's about $38 million per appraiser on the commercial, and we're at $47 million per appraiser currently under appeal. So we've got some staggering numbers when we come to those properties under appeal. And with that, I can stand for questions.
Thank you. Councilman Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Todd, thank you so much, you and your staff, for handling all of the appeals coming from across the city and also from Southwest Minneapolis so professionally. I think I spoke with you 3 separate times between 4 and 4:30 on Friday the 13th. And you were there and ready and willing to talk to any constituent who had any last minute questions, and I appreciate that. A question that I have goes back to slide 10, a heat map of sorts. And it looks like there's a huge red mark in in really a specific neighborhood in our ward. And so can you tell me, what is the approach and how you go back and look at all of these properties and this flood of appeals from this specific neighborhood, which is Lyndhurst? And secondly, as I know your staff were geographic in their areas, how will you help to staff this concentration of appeals? Did you say you just divided up the appeals kind of evenly amongst your team? But yeah, could you just share a little bit about your approach and the staffing to help take a look at this?
Sure. To the chair, Councilmember Palmisano. To your first question, when we see, I think if I'm interpreting right, when we see that much red coming out of one area, could the assessment be wrong? It could be, and we know that by the time we've gone from 3,200 down to a smaller number, that the ones that we're looking at are the ones that are most likely incorrect. But we've done sales ratio analysis. We've done that deep dive. We've looked at all the sales for that general vicinity or that general area, and we know that our sales ratios on the aggregate are still between that 90 and 105, and our target's always about 95, 96. So we know that statistically speaking, we are more right than not. So, but there might be price ranges or price points, and that's something that I've had a number of discussions with a couple of real estate agents, and they were saying that 800 to $1 million and up is just a slow market, and that the values could be. According to this realtor, they've been putting money into these buildings and they're not getting a penny of that improvement back out. And so we did do a deep dive into that, and we said, well, let's take a look at all the sales over $1 million, and we sorted them up by a geographical area that this real estate agent was telling me. And as we did, I pulled out 23 sales. I'd found 5 that were well over assessed and where it's at 130 or 140%. And those we wanted to hear from that property owner. And these are properties that were assessed at maybe 2.5 and, they sold for 1.7 or 1.5. We want to hear from those property owners, but I had 19 that we were still between 85 and 95. So statistically, when I sent this information to the agent, I said, statistically from a mass appraisal, we're still rock solid on how our values look. Can you find some that are really too high? Yep. But guess what? We have the appeals process. And this individual said, these people in this value, this price point, they're not going to call. They don't have the time. They're people of, they're CEOs, or this, they just want you to get the value right. And I said, we can't do that. I mean, if we had the ability, we would have done it right the first time. There's something in our model that is not tracking that value correctly. And until we can walk through it, remeasure it, making sure our building characteristics are correct, those values are still going to be struggling. Because if it valued it wrong this year, it would be valuing it wrong again next year unless something changes. But the remaining, which was well over probably 80%, we were rock solid on every one of those values. We were still, like, again, about 85 to 96 on the majority of them. So I felt pretty good. So when we did a deep dive, statistically, we're rock solid on those. And then the last question, as far as how do we handle the resources, we do look at who is doing Northeast Minneapolis and who is in North Minneapolis. And all my staff are, I wouldn't say interchangeable, because obviously knowing your neighborhoods really, really well helps. But they're all licensed, and most people have been selling or appraising their entire life. So we feel really comfortable to pull them from other areas, and really we'll have 5 people, I think Lyndhurst. Lyndhurst is a very popular number of appeals based on this, and I can absolutely, I think I actually did send out some information of where the appeals were coming from. And if you want me to send that out again, I can do that. But no, we're pulling people from other areas.
Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Rasami. I'm curious if there have been community education. I know you talked a little bit about educating the public, and in the past there have been like community gatherings to talk about valuations and things. Has that happened, or is that
Through the chair,
in the
Councilmember.
plan?
Yeah, this year we did not do 2 neighborhood meetings. I could not secure facilities outside the downtown area to hold these meetings. It was, I approached the park board. Who else did I approach? It was the park board is one, because park board has great facilities. I checked with the libraries. Oftentimes we're looking for places that have easily, with parking, it's easily accessible. Because for me to hold these meetings in downtown Minneapolis, we're just not going to get. So normally we'd go to Pearl Park, or we go to Weber Camden, or we did the library on Lowry. And but this year they were either committed to, or we could not get the space, or I could not find another location. So this year we didn't do it, but I think that's really important, because usually I have those just before the notices go out. And maybe we should have them next fall before we set values. Actually, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I would really encourage it, particularly given the spike in appeals. I mean, it seems like people are really deeply concerned, and I think if people have a broader understanding of how these valuations are created, they may have a little more acceptance of them. At least they'll have more knowledge and awareness of what's going on. So I would strongly urge that we do those, and I think schools can be a good location too to consider.
Right. We're usually talking February, March, but I checked into schools, but the problem is we normally have to be there by about 3. Usually the meetings start around 4, and there's enough other activities going on that the schools were not the most ideal. But this year, I think we'll keep looking until we can find.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with your staff to try to figure out some locations in South Minneapolis for sure.
So,
Member Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair Rasami, and thanks for this presentation. I will say that if we didn't have the sort of open invite meetings, we did have some meetings in Ward where you were very helpful. So I appreciate that, Mr. Todd. I think the meeting in a couple of buildings where we had where we would have had a heat map if we hadn't gone and talked to some specific people, I think were very, very helpful. So I appreciate you coming with me to talk to some Ward 3 constituents. I guess I'm curious if when you look at this heat map, does this correspond to where value increases were the highest? Is there a relationship between where people are objecting to their valuations and where we're actually seeing the market be really hot? And does that mean that values didn't go up in Ward 4 and 5 and 1? Because that wasn't necessarily my understanding of the market. So I guess I'm curious what the connection is between people's valuations going up or their assessments going way up, and whether they actually file an appeal or follow through on the process.
Sure. The chair, Councilmember Fletcher, I don't have that data. That overlaying value increases with calls is something that I could go back to my staff and we can do, and I could probably provide it to you and the council members, but I'm sure there's a correlation there, but I've not looked at any data to really verify that. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Mr. Todd and to Rebecca Malquis as well for all the work you've done. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, I make a motion to move this item for approval. All in approval say aye. All those opposed say no. The item is approved, and we have our final discussion item, item number 52, with our city CFO, I believe. Mark's going to do the introduction for us.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Mark Ruff, the city's Chief Financial Officer. I'd just like to introduce Lyle Hodges, who is our Assistant Controller, and he's going to walk through the details of the report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hodges. And let me read out the final item. Item 52 is a 2017 fourth quarter city financial report. And we'll be receiving and filing the quarterly update on the fiscal status of the city, including a report on the city's cash and investment position, and highlighting key aspects of the financial condition of the city as of December 31st, 2017. Welcome, Mr. Hodges.
Thank you. I have a quick PowerPoint presentation to go through. There is also a detailed financial report that was attached to the agenda and will also be published online after this. So I just want to hit some of the highlights of that report.
Okay, we needed a moment's break anyway, so. Sweet.
Okay, so this is the financial status report as of the fourth quarter of 2017. Just for clarification, these are unaudited numbers. We're currently going through our annual financial audit, and those would be ready in the next couple of months here. However, these numbers would be, we're not expecting any significant changes between what I present here today and what you'll see in the comprehensive annual financial report in June. Just a quick overview. The financial condition of the city as a whole continues to remain healthy and stable, and we continue to meet all of our fund balance and net position reserve requirements in all the major funds. So diving right into the general fund, this is the general operating fund of the city. It's where all financial resources except those required to be accounted for or reported in other funds are kept. So this is the police, fire, city coordinator functions, all the administrative type functions of the city. For year end 2017, the fund balance was 117.1 million. That was a 9.6 million increase over the 2016 ending fund balance of 107.5 million. So we are again continuing to meet that 17% minimum fund balance requirement, which was 81.7 million at the end of fourth quarter. The original budget did include a $5.5 million use of fund balance. However, Revenues exceeded budget by 13.8 million. Expenditures were under budget by 18.9 million. And as a result, we had that growth in fund balance rather than a use of fund balance. And just two quick notes there. We did roll $17.6 million from 2016 into 17, and then we rolled an additional 20.4 from 17 to 18. Some charts and graphs here because we have to have numbers. The major revenues by category, we've got property taxes, local taxes, state aids, and others. Again, in total, we were over budget on revenue by 13.8 million. Some highlights there would be that property taxes came in 2.7 million over budget, state aids by 1.1 million, and then a combination of other sources of revenue came in by 9.5 million. Those sources include service charges, licenses and permits, fines and forfeits, and investment income, all above expectations. And then again, the general fund major expense categories, these are separated out by major departments, so we can see police, fire, public works, and so on. Again, in total, the general fund was $18.9 million under budget for 2017. A couple of highlights. The police department did end up approximately $5.2 million over budget, but that was related to the settlement of that multi-year contract. Fire also ended up slightly over budget at 1.1 million over. Those are related to fleet costs as well as employee health insurance costs. And finally, the elections and clerk area were over slightly due to the citywide elections and the really high voter turnout that we saw. It just kind of drove up costs there. Moving on to another category of funds. So the special revenue funds are used to account for the proceeds of specific revenue sources that are restricted for specific uses. As a way of an example, the special revenue funds of the city are listed there. So convention center, target center, some portion of the police department, some portion of regulatory services, all of our grant funds, so federal as well as local and state grants, and then some operations of CPED are considered special revenue funds. In total, the fund balance of this group of funds was 325.5 million at year end, which was just a slight decrease compared to 2016. And again, the fund balances in these special revenue funds are assigned, which means that they're earmarked for the specific purpose of the operations of that fund. And we have another set of funds here, the internal service funds. So as it says there, these are used to account for the goods and services provided internally to other city departments and funds. We've got a total of 6 internal service funds at the city, and they're listed there. Again, in aggregate, their total net position at year end was $179.3 million, which again, just a slight decrease over the 2016 year end net position. And then finally, we've got the enterprise funds of the city. So these are used to account for the operations of the funds that sell goods and services to external customers. So these are primarily the utility operations, so sewer, water, stormwater, solid waste. And here again, the total net position at year end is $982.8 million, which is a $49 million increase over the 2016 year end position. I've listed cash here as well. So the total cash was $137.5 million. One of the things that should be highlighted on this slide is that net position in the enterprise funds as well as the internal service funds includes all capital assets of those funds. So while the net position was significant, the actual cash balance is maybe more of a relevant measure of how the funds are doing. And we can see that we have $137.5 million in cash in the enterprise funds. And then just a final note there that there is significant ongoing infrastructure and capital needs, which will require the use of that cash, as well as a balanced approach to borrowing as we go forward for those project needs. That was my summary. Are there questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Hodges. Any questions from my colleagues for Mr. Hodges? Right now. Thank you very much. And I make a motion to receive and file the 2017 fourth quarter city financial report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Well, that passes. And having concluded the business on our agenda for today, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.